This is 5 on 20 News. I'm Frank Powers.
And I'm Joel Foster, and we're coming to you live from our downtown studio in Tucson. It's Friday, July 14th.
Is it Casual Friday already?
It is Casual Friday.
Casual Friday, here we go. Oh, everybody move!
Little
Andre the Giant love. There we go.
Let's talk local headlines.
Heck yeah. So, well, Arizonans might spend a lot on guns and Polar Pops, but one thing we spend less on, well, along with education, are lottery tickets. A study by the loan website Lend.edu said that Arizona residents spend about $100 each year on lottery tickets compared to $206 nationally on average. But don't get all snooty yet, because we weren't the lowest lottery spender. That honor went to North Dakota, where the average person spent about $34 on the lottery and where the concept of luck doesn't exist. The bottom 5 consisted of Oklahoma, Montana, New Mexico, and Nebraska rounding it out. The highest lottery spenders were in Massachusetts, who spent 7 times more than Arizona on lottery tickets. And if you've ever been to Massachusetts, you wouldn't be surprised, since every convenience store in the state is occupied by glassy-eyed zombies spending their child support money on their 84th straight game of Keno. I can feel a hot streak coming on.
A bill introduced by Arizona Senator Jeff Flake would allow taxpayers to voluntarily pay towards reducing the federal deficit. The bill, called the Debt Buy-Down Act, would allow taxpayers to make these payments from their annual income taxes. It would also force Congress to make cuts that match the amount contributed by taxpayers to ensure that the extra funds go towards reducing the deficit. Flake said that just 10% of the average citizen's tax liability went towards paying down debt. Then Congress would have to cut $137 billion in spending. He admitted that this wouldn't solve the $20 trillion debt problem, but that it's a good start. According to the bill, if Congress weren't able to find places to make cuts, then there would be automatic budget reductions across the board. This is the second go-around for Flake, as he introduced a similar bill 7 years ago when the national debt was at $13 trillion. Meanwhile, Arizonans are preparing their own citizens' amendment dubbed the "How about you pay off your own debt, pal?" initiative.
A group of immigration advocates and lawyers launched a class action suit on Wednesday against U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly. They claim that Border Patrol officers along the Mexican border have systematically violated U.S. law and international human rights agreements to allow asylum. The lawsuit focuses on specific actions that occurred along the borders of Arizona, California, and Texas, where they claim officers have used a variety of tactics to dissuade people from seeking asylum. According to the lawsuit, these tactics include misrepresentations, threats and intimidation, verbal abuse, and physical force. In some cases, Border Patrol told asylum seekers that they could not apply for asylum because, quote, Donald Trump just signed new laws saying there is no asylum for anyone. While that would be believable, it's simply not true. It is not true. In other cases, officers threw away documents, threatened people to convince them to reverse their stories, and told parents that they would separate them from their children. In response to these stories, Arizona Rep. Raul Grijalva, along with California Rep. Norma Torres, sent a letter to DHS demanding an immediate investigation into the claims. Immigration advocates say that the officers were likely encouraged by policy changes by the Trump administration that urged them to be tougher on border crossers. The lawsuit intends to find out if denying asylum seekers their chance to is part of an official policy change, or if officers are just acting on their own. Border Patrol agents proceeded to act of their own by shredding a pile of official policy documents, allegedly.
Allegedly. All right, Pima County unanimously passed an agreement to work with the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base to reduce encroachment, which could threaten the base. Encroachment happens when development is built in areas that surround the base. Under the agreement, the base agreed to use $1.5 million to buy surrounding property and provide easements to property owners who are located within the takeoff and landing zones around the base. County officials said moving closer to the base could cause safety and noise issues and cause transportation problems in the area. If this plan doesn't work, military officials are designing a moat to surround the base made from toxic waste and filled with mutant crocodiles.
You know, I've played SimCity, and if you just get Bowser to attack, he crushes some of the industrial residential move right in.
Oh, all right.
SimCity, it works. So now in national and international news. The U.S. doubled fuel support to Saudi Arabia in Yemen after a funeral bombing killed 130 people in the country, according to a report in The Intercept. While U.S. officials have stated they are concerned about civilian casualties in Yemen, the House declined to vote on a bill that would have tracked fuel shipments to Saudi Arabian forces in the country. Also, a similar amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act introduced by Ro Khanna failed to pass the House Rules Committee on Wednesday. The amendment would have, at the very least, required reporting to Congress about exactly how many flights are being refueled, where the location is, and verification that they aren't involved in civilian deaths. Saudi Arabia is battling Houthi rebellions in Yemen, who took over large swaths of the country after the former President Ali Abdullah Saleh fled to Saudi Arabia. Since then, the UN claims that the Saudi coalition is responsible for 3,133 civilian deaths since US support began in 2015. The Yemen Data Project reported that there has been more than 13,000 coalition raids since then, with about a third hitting non-military targets. Military officials say that it's hard to determine who's a terrorist and who's a civilian because, you know.
Used to being honest, you know? All right, on Wednesday, whoa. The Bureau of Ocean Energy gave approval for an Italian oil company to drill in a section of the Arctic off the coast of Alaska. The company, Eni, is using a U.S. subsidiary to drill for oil on Spy Island, one of 4 artificial islands created in the area. Environmental activists criticized the deal, claiming that the drilling will endanger polar bears, bowhead whales, and other marine mammals native to the area. President Obama banned oil and gas drilling in most of the Arctic last year, but the Trump administration ordered Interior Secretary Ryan Zink to review the ban. Guess he reviewed it. Eni is calling for extended reach wells that could stretch for 6 miles off the coast, which Kristen Monsell of the Center for Biological Diversity says could put marine wildlife at risk if there's an oil spill. The deal was also criticized because of the short timeline leading up to the approval. The Trump administration provided only 21 days for the public to review and comment on the exploration plan, according to Monsell. Eni will begin their winter-only drilling in December, and the operation will run until May 2019. An oil spill is expected sometime in the winter of 2018, just in time for midterms.
I'm sure they'll apologize.
Yeah, I look forward to that.
Donald Trump is downgrading his big, beautiful wall into a little pretty wall, according to statements made on the president's trip to Paris. Trump said, contrary to his campaign claims, he doesn't expect all 2,000 miles of border to be covered by a wall. Rather, he says that he envisions anywhere from 700 to 900 miles of a border wall, which he now says will be see-through. This seems to be a much more modest goal since there's already 650 miles of a see-through fencing currently along the border. Trump acknowledged that much of the border is marked by natural borders such as the Rio Grande River, along with the border of Texas and the Colorado River along the border of Arizona. Initially, Trump delivered the statements off the record to reporters, but the White House later gave permission to print the remarks. And the reason for the sudden enthusiasm for a see-through nature for the see-through nature of the wall? Trump said that drug smugglers could potentially toss a 60-pound bag of drugs over the wall and injure someone. Yeah. So it turns out the border wall isn't the inhumane disaster we thought, but it's actually meant to protect us from the scourge of flying bags of illicit drugs. Brilliant.
It's dangerous out there. You're going to wear a helmet. All right, Republicans made some uncommon allowances for progressive causes in this year's defense budget. Yesterday, a group of Republicans joined with Democrats to defeat an amendment that would have removed funding for a climate change study to be carried out by the Pentagon. The amendment was introduced by Republican Representative Scott Perry, who said those types of studies should not be carried out by the military. He said that a group of other agencies already study climate change, so the additional study is redundant. However, 46 Republicans disagreed with him as the amendment was defeated 185 to 234 votes. 2 Republicans argued on the House floor against the amendment, with Representative Elise Stefanik stating that the effects of climate change are, quote, drivers of geopolitical instability and degrade the security of the United States. On the same day, Republicans also helped to defeat another amendment that would have banned funding for gender transition surgery. This amendment was introduced by Representative Vicky Hartzler, who said that these surgeries could cost $1.3 billion over the next decade. However, the real number, according to the Rand Corporation, conservative Rand Corporation, said that the number would be more like 20 to 80 million over the next 10 years. Democrats and some Republicans objected to the rule because they claimed that it would lead to taking away care for transgender service members altogether. This would prevent recruitment numbers because transgender people would refuse to serve. Studies have shown that the military actually has a higher than average number of transgender people than the general population. Reportedly, Republicans felt good about objecting to laws that actually helped people and are even thinking about voting against their own health care bill. Imagine that.
That's good news.
Yeah,
I think we're
that is
actually,
nice.
that's a little good news. That's
Right.
amazing. All right, so this was 5 on 20 News. I'm Frank Powers. This is Joel Foster. And after this show right now, immediately following our show, I believe, Joel, what are you going to be talking about? You got a special piece for everybody out there in
Sure.
Tucson land.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about DJ Jr. That's right, Donald Trump Jr. and his adventures in Russia land. It's his turn this time. Everyone's had their little Russia thing going on.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, so
I'll
it'll
tell
be
you,
fun.
It's been really funny because with the email thing that happened, it's funny to watch reporters being like, did you see like some of the news of the tweets from reporters like, I've been working on this story for a year. He just tweeted it out. I've been sources and hours, hundreds of hours contacts. He just tweeted it out. It's brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to stay on that social media. You might just find the scoop of the century. So stay tuned. Joel's going to get you all that, and make sure that what we want you to do now also, make sure you subscribe to Creative Tucson on our YouTube, so that you'll always get this nice little nugget of news for everything going on in Tucson and all around this place called the country. So there you go. So stay cool, Tucson. This was, again, it's Frank Powers.
Joel Foster.
Heck yeah. Stay cool, Tucson. Woo!
All right, see you in a minute.